It is Saturday night. And why are we here discussing the Book of Boba Fett on a Saturday? Well, because tomorrow is Super Bowl Sunday, and we thought that would be crazy talk to record on Super Bowl Sunday. My name is Joshua Gilliland, one of the founding attorneys of the Legal Geeks, and with me to review the final episode of the Book of Boba Fett Season 1 is Thomas Harper and Gabby Martin. How you both doing this evening, Gabby?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back with the OG team from The Mandalorian. And yeah, I didn't watch the season of Book of Boba Fett. I will fully admit that. But the past few episodes have been excellent. Not finale, but it was definitely good. And I saw something the other day that said that Pedro Pascal this entire franchise on his back, and that he deserves our thoughts and prayers. And I really think he is definitely carrying the franchise.
Yeah. How about you?
Gabby's comment there made me brought it back just like how long it's been since we were first together, and going back to the days of the first season of The Mandalorian. That made me feel really old really quick. Thank you, Gabby. But no, I'm good. Yeah, in a lot of ways that's cool. What was that? That would have been like the beginning of the lockdown, like start of the pandemic. Mando was about the only new TV that we were getting, so this is an awesome reunion. But yeah, good. I'm excited. It was I think perhaps a little bit telling how Disney felt about how the series was being received, that they dropped news of the official release date of Obi-Wan like right in the middle of what should be celebration of the finale. But a fun, like a really really fun episode, if nothing else. Like we get a rancor, and anytime you get a rancor, that's cool.
I think the investor call had been scheduled before, so this was, coordinated. Uh, they also take the position we're not going to promote two Star Wars shows at the same time, so
Yeah.
we wait to the end, which again we saw how that worked out for Solo. But with a TV show, it's I think a different creature.
Yeah.
And for Kenobi, everyone's happy to see him back because of McGregor, and it just so yeah. With that said, Pedro Pascal is doing the Lord's work when you go. So we're not going to see your face. You're going to carry this through body language and a puppet, and through that, we want you to make the world cry. You on board? So, and he's I love the dude. This is phenomenal. So
What I love is if people haven't seen it yet, definitely go check out some footage from Pedro Pascal recording the voice, because obviously he does sometimes in the suit, sometimes it's a stunt double. But he does, that's not him actually talking on set. And when he's carrying Baby Yoda, he's actually carrying a pillow when he's recording, and it's the funniest thing. It's so adorable, and it's just classic. So definitely check that out.
the man's a treasure. So let's
The
let's
best
just,
space dad.
yeah, and that's also a refreshing turn that we have good dads, as opposed to the dad who will cut off your cut off your hand and lay waste to a planet. So good. It's a low bar, but
Yeah.
Progress.
We are going upward
yeah.
from the
He's
bottom.
not fully there yet. Still endangering the child, but like improvement.
The kid's got body armor now. So again, he was concerned, but
His head is still exposed. Like he needs a helmet.
it's going to take a lot of Beskar. I don't know what they're going to do about the years.
He's got to do some more jobs for that one.
Agreed. But there's the other part of this is Boba Fett became a compelling character, and I've mentioned this before. if like 10 years ago, it's like, hey, he's overrated. Like he just looks cool and didn't do anything. This is now he's a dynamic character with depth and emotion, and he's thoughtful. I like all those things. And I wanted to, with the way the series started, and then we had the side quest of Mandalorian come in. Yeah, that did throw me for a loop. Like that again, it kind of changed the tone of the series. But I do want more Boba Fett now with him trying to have a functional society. Because he's not a crime boss. This is more the story about why the rule of law is important to have a functional government so people don't get killed and drug running doesn't destroy an entire country. So there's a lot there of it's this isn't marijuana, this is crack cocaine going through the community and fighting a cartel that wants to bring it. So I appreciated that. But let's get into the legal issues because there are a bunch with this, despite it being all-out mob war. And I would say that with a mob war, it would fall under RICO. There's no way that mob war is in any way justified, shape, or form. Mobs, by definition, are engaged in crimes. So it's a RICO type situation with what they're doing. It's racketeering and it's Al Capone type stuff, John Gotti. But the weird part of this is Boba Fett is not the traditional mobster. And it's hard to define what it is because it seems to be more, let's have a functional government. Despite the fact there's a mayor, I don't know if it's elected or appointed, that's never really discussed, other than that Boba could off the mayor if he so chose to. But it's peculiar. And I see this as an analogy for the rule of law. Gabby, since you haven't pontificated on this before, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, right? Because he's obviously person to the Pike Syndicate, which is classic Star Wars kind of monster gang. And I think interesting, and we've talked about this before with Cobb Vanth and the marshal and different how kind of come into play and whether they're elected, whether they're appointed. And it seems that Boba does have some sort of title. Again, I fully admit that I did not watch the first few episodes of Boba Fett. He does appear to have some sort of title that he uses in his in the surrender, in the negotiations, right? That this is some sort of power position that he has. So clearly he's not just kind of like, oh, I have control of the city. Like he's like, no, like as whatever the title is, I have kind of this position. So I agree with you under RICO, but he's, I think, in a different category because he's trying to set up a government, trying to set up kind of not necessarily a democracy, but a kind of functioning government. So yeah, I think he's kind of separate and apart, and he's really not attacking the citizens, right? He's not committing violence to commit violence. He's trying to kind of run the city and kind of save the city. So I think there's kind of a difference there as opposed to the Pike Syndicate. Definitely is not getting goals.
Yeah. For those that don't know RICO, and I will fully confess I'm not a RICO expert and don't practice in these types of cases on the criminal or civil side. But you're talking just shorthand acronym for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. That's a mouthful. RICO rolls off the tongue much better, but a very, very effective law at prosecuting and coming after organized crime. It's probably the single law that's made it really manageable to go after, mobs, mafias, uh, that sort of thing. And it's not that old a law. It's not been around for, what is it, 1970 it was introduced, like the early 70s. I don't know the exact date it was enacted, but it's a relatively young law in terms of like the real world panoply of options there for Star Wars. I think Gabby's exactly right. Boba Fett's in this weird sphere because of what he's doing. I think he probably, because of some of his activities in how he's getting paid, he's demanding tribute, basically protection money. In some ways, um, can you make a case for like extortion, something like that? Certainly, the murder of Bib Fortuna, I think, would be racketeering activity that might fall within here. The Pike Syndicate, almost certainly. I mean, they've got like almost every offense that falls under the RICO umbrella checked off with a big red check mark. But Boba Fett's a little bit trickier of a case, and I would like to think, we talk about prosecutorial discretion and that sort of thing. If we're coming at this from the eyes of maybe a New Republic prosecutor, who's the bigger fish here? Are you going to go after the Pikes, who are involved in illicit drug running, acts of terrorism, murder, all sorts of big name RICO type activities? Or are you going to go after the guy that you know took the helm in Tatooine and is trying to clean up, although he's still not completely straight? That line about from Cad Bane toward the end, like, you tried to go straight. I'm like, did he? Like, he cleaned up a little bit, but he's just because you don't deal in spice doesn't mean you're not a criminal still. Um, I'd like to think that the Pikes would be the target of the sort of limited judicial resources that the New Republic has. They're going to be his targets. They're certainly the ones that are going to be easier to mount a RICO prosecution. You've got the predicate offenses there that are, I think, met in spades, and you don't have the same hiccups that you do with Boba's case.
Yeah, it is complicated and weird and different than anything that you've seen in the real world. So having comparisons is not straightforward. The Pikes it's a drug cartel. Like it's like, well, easy, okay, spice, cocaine. Like we can understand this parallel. Boba's different, and I am not educated enough on what a daimyo was in Japan to know if that is comparable. But that would be interesting political theory analysis. That said, we have war, and we have basically non-aggression treaties with the other families, and they flat out breach the non-aggression treaties because I'm not sure historically if there's ever been a non-aggression treaty that's worked.
Right.
It just, you're asking the bully not to beat you up because you're gonna let the bully go beat up others first, and it did great for Russia against Germany. So yeah, way to go. But yeah, you just don't see them working out well.
Yeah.
So there's a breach of those treaties, which are like contracts. What's the remedy? Well, the remedy doesn't really fall under any civil situation because of what's happening. You're effectively in a state of war, which we should save to the end when we talk about what Fennec does. And because again, there's no way that we can make this legal. It's like, okay, we're in rule of the gun territory.
Yeah.
We have an attempt for a negotiated surrender. And this is after the mayor's, I'm blanking on what the Twi'lek's title was, but he takes the position, I'm educated. I can go out here. And Boba Fett quickly
He went
writes
to
something.
finishing school on Coruscant.
Which I love that reference. That was such a, because that was so common. And like,
Yeah.
I've talked about this on other podcasts, like the kind of political training that was available to folks in the Star Wars universe, and especially in the core worlds, is really cool. Like, we look at characters like Padme, like she was really young. She had been doing this for a while, and they train them. So get that kind of like little Easter egg. In addition to all the kind of prequel stuff we got in episode 6, 5, 6, was just kind of it was just super cool.
Highlights the importance of read contract. So he goes out to read Boba Fett's supposed to be terms of surrender in front of people with guns who can kill him, and he hasn't looked at the script yet. And I think it's important. It's important to acknowledge that he took the position that I'm educated and you're not. You're just the hired gun who's now in charge. And Boba quickly wrote something that was pretty eloquent, if not poetry, in the span of like 10 seconds, with how the desert sands would flow with the arid blood of the pikes. It's like, yeah, boy.
Flowers will bloom again. Yeah.
It's like,
he was so eager to prove his talents there, to flex those diplomatic muscles. Yeah, his reading comprehension was a little rusty still, though.
It raises the issue of, like, did Boba have a duty to him before sending him to harm's way? And
no, he could have read that. And he clearly missed the political course where if you're an elected official, you read what somebody has given you before you get out there and speak.
Yeah.
I, as somebody who currently works for an elected official, I will tell you that as good as my writing is, he never goes out there without reading it first. So
throw it up on the teleprompter, full trust.
yeah.
It's like in Anchorman where he goes, "I'm Ron Burgundy," and he's like, "Who typed a question mark?" He reads whatever is on the teleprompter.
That was a missed lesson, because nobody in at least Connecticut state government has that much trust in each other.
Especially when death is on the line.
Exactly.
It's one thing to go out there and mispronounce a name and you have Spin City kick in. It's another thing to go like, I'm going to die if this goes wrong. That said,
he's kind of reading it as going, and he comes out with all this kind of confidence, and then he reads it, he's like, and his offer is no.
Why don't we discuss what you will pay?
Oh shit.
Oh no. This did not.
Hands down, and I will confess, I don't know that they gave him a character name. If they do, or if they had, I don't remember it, and I'll forfeit my trivia belt, I suppose. But he was the highlight of this entire series, and seeing him kind of come to a fine point here as sort of the useless vassal trying to be useful. I just love where he kind of makes this promise to Boba Fett, like, look, with my training, you can expect to get off world with a little bit of just meaningless genuflecting and groveling. It's no big deal. You'll have to make a big show of it, but you'll leave with your life. So yeah, that took a fun. He was one of my favorites in the whole show.
Yeah, I also love the moment that we get later on where Amy Sedaris' character actually goes to protect him, and it just kind of further emphasizes Pelimoto, how useless he is and how just, he's completely in harm's way and he just needs, somebody to take care of him.
Yeah.
So,
There's a highlight in here, sort of a we talk about, relationships, contractual or otherwise, and Mando has agreed to help him for free, help Boba for free, presumably as a payback for the assist that Boba gave in finding or in helping track down Luke and that sort of critical part of the mission in season 2 of Mando. And there's this really poignant back and forth that he and Boba have before the whole shootout begins. And Boba's like, I suppose you're going to be leaving then. And just expecting him to walk out and say, I didn't sign up for a battle to the death, basically. And Mando, I don't have the exact quote, but Mando's basically like, look, I'm in it until the end, and kind of feels out how Boba wants to do it, and he says, okay, we both die for honor then. And it's a moment of the Mandalorian going above and beyond any sort of contractual duty to him. This sort of highlights Din's value as a contracted partner, but just the character in general, somebody that can be relied upon when all the chips are down. He's got no legal duty to stay there. This is beyond anything that was foreseen at the outset in terms of what was predicted to happen. I don't think Din anticipated sort of a final showdown with the two of them facing down the entire Pike Syndicate without backup, but that's the situation they found themselves in. So it was kind of a cool moment like that.
So, a couple directions with this. The mayor's dandy. He has a great scream when the rancor comes in, and Pelly is flirting with him. Saying something about
nice
his tails
tails.
and behind me, pretty face. So like all of that is glorious, and just pure Star Wars fun. The exchange between Mando and Boba Fett is also why people love Star Wars. It's the loyalty. It's the no, I'm not leaving you. Yeah, this is gonna suck, but we're gonna do it on principle. We also have the discussion of faith, and it's in the Mandalorian terms of Boba saying, "Do you believe in all that bantha fodder?" And Mando says yes, and Boba says good. I don't know if there's a fiduciary relationship that's created between the two of them, but there's definitely a good fidelity. Yeah. And it's again, it's part of storytelling that people just gravitate towards. It makes people happy to see. Well, it's them flying out in jetpacks to shoot from the air, which again, pure Star Wars joy. It's the things that we've only seen in the animated series with these. We got to see a little of it in the Mandalorian episode "The Sin," with Mandalorians in flight shooting at other bounty hunters, all good stuff. But this was broad daylight. They're in the air. So like they're not trying to, it's like, we'll make it dark so that way we can go cheap with the special effects. It was broad daylight, bright light, hit it. And that fight is so Western. It's so war movie. It's for the film students out there to look at this, and try to pinpoint all the inspiration, whether it's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or any samurai movie. There's just a lot there to enjoy, and I thought that was also one of the highlights. Then with the cavalry coming in, again, pure Western, absolute Western. Even though I thought there would be more people from Freetown and maybe a few Tusken Raiders that they would ask to come along, but maybe I was hoping too much.
Yeah.
Either of you want to add to that with the fight that then
Yeah,
ensued?
no, I love the fight sequence. To me, I mean, you get a lot of the kind of larger battles, but like when they do, I think Star Wars works best when it goes to combat. You know, you have two individuals with their kind of backs against each other, you know, kind of moving against the enemy. And I think it's just, and to see, you know, the new rocket and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, and the way they kind of work together. Although it seemed like, you know, clearly it was taking a while to, you know, that like one guy. But it was great to see, you know, all the that kind of type of combat. I think is always the best in Star Wars as opposed to kind of generic larger fight sequences.
Yeah, I love I think Gabby's spot on. I love the prelude to the fight with the showdown with Cad Bane, and to quote the Twi'lek, the exemplary stratagem displayed by Boba Fett, really by Fennec. Um, eh, Cad comes out there and is trying to goad him into just what would be an easy showdown for Cad Bane, just shoot him and be done with the job, with no bigger fight. And Fennec's back there saying, "This isn't the time nor the place. You know, you need to choose where and when we fight, and this ain't it." And you see Boba Fett sort of reluctantly back down. He wants very badly to raise the blaster and fight right there. The fight was pure. I don't know that we've seen much of this kind of open warfare on the streets that's not like first order versus resistance, or empire versus rebel alliance. I mean, you've got plenty of examples of like actual warfare like that, but like, you know, force on force, like gang on gang, something like this is sort of unprecedented. And the Mandalorian and now Book of Boba Fett have sort of uh stepped up the Star Wars game on that front. This was like me playing in the sandbox with my stuff. Like all that was missing was some pew pews, and like my 7-year-old hands like flying around the Boba Fett and Din on their jetpacks. But I thought it was really, really great. I mean, it was the bulk of the episode, so we got exactly what we were hoping for in a way with that. But the no check or no holds barred open warfare on the streets was neat to see.
Yeah,
Not for the residents, but you know.
no, but it did endear them. So there's that. But yeah, this is like Rogue One level, like
Yeah.
type combat, which was the first time that we truly saw this. I mean, the Battle of Hoth. I mean, like, yeah, it was on location, but it's beyond like anything.
Yeah.
It's kinetic, and it shows off all the toys. It's literally Robert Rodriguez. Yeah, yeah. It's knee rockets, wrist rockets, whistling birds, jetpacks. It's guys who grew up playing with their toys. Let's make a TV show doing everything we've ever dreamed of. And you know what? God bless them for doing that. Which then gets to when they're out of Calvary, we get the rancor. And I admit, I thought he was going to try to signal other Tuscan tribes, because I thought that would make sense. And then when we hear the roar, it's like, oh yeah, Stompy needs to come in. And we get to see him ride the rancor. And this is a true love letter to King Kong and other kaiju movies.
Yeah.
On Twitter, I put out a poll for what should the rancor's name be, and I used names of famous FX artists. And the one in the lead has been Harryhausen. And I was a little hurt that Will O'Brien, for Willis O'Brien, who did King Kong, got 0, so that kind of hurt me. But the It's like, okay, people respect the classics. Uh, Lucas was up there as well, as was it Tippett, who was the
Yes.
one of the FX
That's
model
cool.
makers, who I thought it should be him, just given his relationship with what.
He puppeted the original Rancor, so that would be fitting.
Yeah, it's like I would name him that. But we now have the type of thing we only get to talk about in kaiju movies. We have a giant monster rampaging, and it does raise the question: who's the real monster? But so the giant creature is used as a weapon, and then after Boba gets thrown, we have the juvenile rancor who's scared. Angry villagers are shooting at him. It's disturbing his sense of zen. He's out of pikes to snack on. His blood sugar's low. What
It's
what's the
his
line?
nap time.
So we have strict liability issues here when you have a wild animal on the rampage. And Gabby, do you want to? You added some notes here. Can you help us understand Boba Fett's potential liability here?
Yeah, because clearly he has kind of not necessarily domesticated the rancor in any way, but he has control. He's this is not just kind of like a kaiju just kind of running loose over the city, right? Like he brings this rancor into the city, riding the rancor into the city, and so when we talk about strict liability and liability for any kind of animal attacks, obviously it's whether the first question the court looks at is whether the animal who owns a wild animal, and this is like tigers, snakes, those lions, tigers, bears, oh my, that they're held strictly by that animal. The courts generally define a wild animal that is by nature wild, regardless of whether it is Roy that is still a wild or exotic animal. And so again, courts have considered the snakes, lions, tigers, bears, but I'm sure they would consider a rancor, even though he seems very cuddly and, Kuroko was able to approach him at the very end. He'd still be a wild animal. And so Boba would be on the hook for bringing him into the city. And for any physical damage he caused, he would be responsible for probably all the body count this guy racks up of all the pikes he eats, all the citizens that he injures or kills, and also any fear that he puts into people. People can have emotional distress claims against Boba for the rancor that been caused from the rancor.
Yeah, the question that popped into my mind, it goes back to what is Boba's role? What does a daimyo effectively mean, right? Because Mos Espa has a government, it has a mayor, elected officials, that sort of thing. They seem to be separate and apart from this criminal enterprise. But I did wonder whether you could consider the Rancor, an extension of law enforcement for the city in the absence of any. And if you're going to go down that route, is there any sort of immunity? Does Boba get the sort of cloak of sovereign immunity? The business where you can't sue the government for just anything under the sun. Is this Rancor like the equivalent of a police canine unit or a police horse that happens to stand 30 feet tall or something like that? I had some fun playing around with that in my head. I don't know what the answer is because I don't know what the daimyo is. I think it's going to be hard for Fett to make a case that he should by extension have any sort of grant of immunity, even though he's providing law enforcement services. The issue here is that it's almost like the lesser of two evils. Like the Rancor destroyed a lot. It's a destructive, scary creature that did a lot. But he's facing two of these Scorpineck droids that are about to tear up the entire city themselves and are actively doing so. They're just sort of not caring what they destroy along the way. And this is really the only tool that Boba has to destroy these things. Because whatever that shielding is that they have on him is like the best in all of Star Wars. I don't know where that kind of shielding has been like for anything else. It's just like impenetrable to. It reminded me of destroyer droid shielding. Like if there's an episode in the Clone Wars where they Anakin and Ahsoka are like training some local militia forces with Saw Gerrera, and they have to like roll these grenades in very slowly to get them through the shield. So anyhow, that's like me going down a canon rabbit hole. But back to the Rancor, I was just curious whether if either of you had any thoughts, whether there'd be any immunity, what the deal is with the purpose why he's trying to use this Rancor.
So I think there is, and for a couple reasons. He rides it in the battle, and have a tradition with riding horses and other armies, whether it's elephants, like that has happened. He's dismounted in combat, and the creature goes awry when it gets afraid. We also have precedent for the U.S. government using wild animals in military service. The Marine Mammal Program, teaching dolphins to go inspect ships or plant bombs, or there was a wild claim by someone who said we use dolphins to kill a bunch of North Viet Cong, and it was like that's in case law with like this guy making wild claims, and everyone like, we think you're crazy. So, but this would be like Battle of Stalingrad and the Russians using bears, like to rip apart Germans. It would be emotionally satisfying to see. This definitely was. I think you also get a good necessity defense, because if you do say you can sue the sovereign, if he falls into that category, one, he had to do it because their back was against the wall. It was the last ditched effort. He was out of friends. So this was what they needed to do, like using, the broken arrow fire on my position type situation. It was what they had to do. After the dismount, though, we see him throw a speeder. He's climbing around. Again, it's the full-on King Kong scene. And it's emotionally rewarding to see the good dad in Star Wars say, stop shooting, you're scaring him. And Mando tried to calm the beast and get really hurt in the process. And then we get
his head squished.
Oh God, just the number of concussions that man had, and probably a few broken bones and bruised ribs from getting thrown a couple times. That said, we do get the great scene with Grogu, and the Rancor goes to sleep, and then they snuggle up and take a nap, which is really adorable. So they know how to make people happy. But I do think it's a defendable position, because it was using a weapon of mass destruction because you had to. There's the Tom Clancy book, Sum of All Fears, which begins with the 6-Day War, in which the Israelis were going to deploy Operation Joshua, which was the use of nuclear weapons. And it's the nuke that gets lost when the plane gets shot down, that is found 30 years later in the focus of the book. But it's that type of situation that they felt, we have to do this because there's no other option. Gabby, I think you had something to add?
No, I mean, I still think that look and define it as a wild animal.
Oh, absolutely.
To Thomas's example, it's difficult to compare this to kind of canine dogs or canine horses or police horses, because those fall more on the domesticated side, right? Even though, when you get into the domesticated side, there is an issue with whether you apply kind of, just negligence or strict liability, depending if a dog is known to bite or what have you. But this is like this, yes, they had, kind of used all other options before getting to this, but at the same time, you knew the risk that you were taking bringing this into the city. And so at the least, I think maybe not responsible for kind of the pipes and but definitely responsible for that damage. And not just, for bringing the rancor in, but I was looking it up, and a daimyo is a Japanese feudal lord from the 10th century. So he has kind of kind of above the mayor overseeing the town, right? And so he would be responsible. Hopefully, he has good insurance to pay for all of this damage, and definitely he's going to be getting some emotional distress lawsuits from all those very scared residents. Even if they did give him fruit, I don't think that doesn't. They're not even.
Here's a Melu run. You're served.
Maybe. I'm like, if they're very happy that the pikes were thrown out, and again, it's like we got rid of the crack cocaine dealers, and that beautiful crushing rancor is the one that helped save the day. They'd make T-shirts. They would put them on the flag. Like there would be.
They didn't get to eat him though, so like that seemed to be like what kind of bummed them out. So
it's like the statue of IG-11 that goes up. I wouldn't be surprised if they think in terms of that, of the statue of a rancor eating a pike that could look good in the town square. So that's just set a high bar.
We made it for you, Boba.
Which then brings us to the issue of having a child and a gunfight. Now, Mando did not bring Grogu to the gunfight. Peli did. Mando then is tasked with, how'd you get here? We get the adorable hug, but now he's running around in a shootout with the kid. Gabby, you added some notes to this talking point. Can you enlighten us?
I mean, my continual, I loved it, and I think he is a good space dad, but he and I still have issues on his parenting style and his parenting skills, because he puts that kid in danger all the time. Granted, like you said, he was not the one to bring Grogu into this situation. That was Peli, and Peli would be kind of responsible. Although you could argue Peli didn't know all of this was happening, so I'm sure she probably heard. Like, I would imagine she would have heard the explosions, turned around, but she would be, the one that would kind of be at fault for putting Grogu at risk. But he really do a good job of ensuring that, he just kind of was like, okay, just hang out over here, and like I'm gonna go back and fight. He doesn't secure Grogu away in a secure location apart from the fighting and making sure that Grogu is okay. So he's definitely on the hook for some parental negligence, and just he hasn't gotten it better. I mean, he gave the kid chainmail, but like we're not 100%. We're at like maybe 60 or 70.
So Thomas, you're the JAG officer who understands law of war. You got kids. What would you do if you're suddenly in the shootout and you have to make snap decisions to make sure the kid's safe and you can go play soldier and stop the bad guy?
Put him behind actual cover. That would be the start of it, not just like here, sit in this doorway. That seems to be the stratagem during this battle, which is like ignore basic cover and concealment rules. But um, yeah, so in on the child endangerment piece, at least in Pennsylvania, it's not a very complex crime. It's not RICO in terms of what it takes to prove it, but it's just somebody who's in a position, parent, guardian, somebody that's supposed to be supervising a child, and then you knowingly endanger the welfare of the child by violating, duty of care, protection, support, that sort of thing. Um, Here, I think it's so for Din at least, you would have you would have to zero in on where he puts what he does with Grogu when he gets a moment during the battle, because by the time they link up, the battle is raging. He didn't bring Grogu, as you said, into the battle. And so he didn't introduce him to that danger. Um, did he do enough? Does his action and sort of like half-hearted is the wrong word, because he really does try to get him out of the line of fire. But did that like put him in the in any danger, continuous danger? I don't know that you make a case against Din. And he's trying to do the exact opposite. He's trying to protect Grogu, shielding him from gunfire with the Beskar on, combined with the suit that he gave him. I think shows that he's trying to protect him. Child endangerment isn't necessarily like, did you do the best job possible? It's it's a different standard than that. So you're not going to prosecute Din over not doing the best job possible to protect Grogu. And I don't think you meet the bar for a criminal offense on this one.
Yeah, and I think also, Din is aware that not only he has the Beskar armor, but he's got some force training, right?
Yeah,
He knows how to protect. This is not the Grogu that he had in especially first season Mandalorian, right? So, and even then he could protect himself, right? He
Yeah.
fought, tried to choke
Do the magic hand thing.
Do the magic hand thing, exactly. So like he knows that he has semblance. This is not, kind of a helpless infant, right? This is a child that can somewhat protect itself. And you even see that, right? He force jumps into Mando's arms, which is just the most adorable thing, and I could watch that on loop. I mean, just absolutely
Yes.
all the feels, and just like I just want to see Grogu getting hugged more. That's all. That's all I want.
Yeah, it's been a rough week or two, so yeah, I absolutely understand. Now let's pivot to the final shootout with Cad Bane. That raises both issues of self-defense and when does it turn into a summary execution. Tom, do you want to start with this from the shootout being self-defense for what's going on?
Yeah, so the point at which the killing happens is tough. So the general rule, and we've touched on it a number of times in various capacities, but when you talk self-defense, you're talking about the need to use force to protect yourself because you're in danger of some harm yourself. When we talk about the use of deadly force, so the highest degree of force that you can use, you're killing another person, or in this case, a Duros. You're talking about a heightened bar to clear to be able to use that kind of force. We don't want the streets of, like in my case, Allentown, Pennsylvania, to look like the streets of Mos Espa, right? Just people gunning each other down with blasters and stuff. Side note, I might want to see that. Like if like blasters and the dark saber involved, I might sign on to that. But the general rule is you got to have more to be able to use deadly force, because that's that's the fullest escalation of things. So when the shootout starts and Cad Bane fires on him, he's got a serious a serious threat to his own safety, the threat of death. That allows him to use deadly force in response. So he's facing that heightened danger. That allows him to use the heightened degree of force. The issue with Cad Bane is when Boba runs him through with the gaffy stick, he's on his ground, or he's on his back. He's got, I think he's disarmed. I don't think he has his blaster in hand at that point. The threat's over. And the core of self-defense is that your ability to use that force is good for so long as you're under threat. Think of it like a coupon, right? Like your coupon expires the moment that the threat to you expires. And we see this from time to time play out in cases where you see like a home invasion, and it's the difference between a homeowner shooting somebody that's threatening them inside the home versus the burglar that's running away and is out in the street, and the homeowner fires on them as they're getting away and have already left the house. Here, Cad Bane's completely incapacitated in terms of he's out of the fight. I think he can probably still harm Boba, but he's down. And Boba's coupon, his self-defense coupon, if you will, has expired. He can't, at least legally, he can't shoot him. I think you could make the argument that Cad Bane's dangerous no matter what position he's in, but I think in a strict reading of it, his self-defense ability has run out at this point.
I think the only argument would be Bane still has his gauntlets on that have a flamethrower, and I don't know what other armament. I think that's the only straw that doesn't make this look like a revenge killing. It would have been much cleaner if Boba had, like knocked one of the weapons out, spun around and run him through while standing. Right. Like it would have been a cleaner, that was self-defense, as opposed to he's been disarmed, he's on the ground, you arrest him now. So it's highly problematic because it looks like a summary execution. Gabby, your thoughts?
I mean, it's hard because, you have the kind of quick draw moment. So clearly, self-defense, he could still perceive Cad Bane as the threat, right? He doesn't know what weapons Cad has on his person. And, he is obviously quicker to the draw than Boba. So he could, even though he's in a prone position, he could still easily, he has his gauntlets, he may have other weapons on him that he could use to. So in Boba's mind, the threat is not completely neutralized until he's taken out completely. So yeah, it's interesting. I tend to agree that, especially if he is in a one, then, the time to kind of arrest them, you don't, execute them. But at the same time, we don't know what other weapons, what other threat was there. So, and it was cool. Like, wish, like the gaffy stick stuff is just, to me, that was a highlight of the first episode. We saw Boba back. And I find it fascinating how much Tamir Morrison has incorporated his own Maori kind of heritage and culture into the gaffy stick stuff and the fighting. And it's just, I love it. I love seeing, that kind of representation in Star Wars, and to see him, obviously with his helmet off when he's using the gaffy stick is super cool.
Yeah, I thought it was very fitting, the business of Cad's been poking at him the entire time he's been on screen about Boba being a killer, and like, you've gone straight, you've gone soft, that sort of thing. A very fitting way for Cad to go out with Boba sort of revisiting those roots and kind of proving him wrong once and for all.
Yeah, and again, he does it without his helmet on. So again, the fight is fantastic. I was left going, ooh, I wish he hadn't been on his back, because that's. But again, it was brutal and exceptionally well done. Now, let's talk about. There's the liability or potential liability for all the townsfolk who started shooting at the scared rancor. And we're backtracking a little bit here, but
Poor little guy.
oh god, I mean, he just saved all their tails. And what's his reward? Yeah, getting shot at. This is like true kaiju love, and it's like Kong with a happy ending, where he just the monkey takes a nap, and it's okay, big guy, and Gabby, you did some.
Sun's getting real low.
Okay,
You're crossing the streams.
Yeah. Again, it was nap time.
It's 11 o'clock at night here on the East Coast. Like, it's just.
So, Gabby, walk us through your analysis on can anyone who shot at, Harryhausen, is there liability issues?
I'm sorry, I just, especially with Baby Yoda and the hand thing, I can't get over the comparison. Anyway, in real serious lawyer stuff, there is so apparently in Utah in the killing wild animal when the person really helps another person or impact that of the action, courts can look at the nature of the danger, the immediacy of the danger, the probability that the threatening wild animal that the attack will result in death or serious bodily injury, the ability to safely avoid the danger, the fault of the person in creating the account, and any previous pattern of aggressive or threatening behavior by the individual. So what here, they had already kind of, and they even say they had backed up as far as they could back up, right? So they really had nowhere else to safely avoid the danger. The probability that it will result in death, or he's already killed several people. So they pretty much are justified in defending themselves and others and the town against the rancor attack and shooting the rancor, even though he did help them with defense, at least in the state of Utah, if we are applying the laws of the state of Utah, they would have kind of a self-defense case.
Yeah, to quote K2SO, would you like to know the probability that rancor will kill you if you don't shoot it? High. It's very high.
Yeah. Now, Boba introduces Fennec Shan multiple times as Master Assassin Fennec Shan, and then we got to see it. Let's talk about was Fennec justified in butchering all the Pikes, the mayor, and the other mob leaders? I'm just good. Legally, no.
No.
Real law of war, maybe.
I mean, no. I'll throw that one to Thomas, but to quote one of my favorite episodes, which is quoting another, I believe, Gandhi quote from Law and Order, is, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. And, it's just, you're supposed to kind of take the higher, and she is kind of in the kind of martial capacity as kind of a law enforcement special agent type thing. Yeah, they should have faced prosecution not execution, even though they were really bad and evil and all of that kind of stuff. That's why there are justice systems in place.
Yeah, I think under a normal legal framework, no, she's operating as she's comfortable, well outside the bounds of the traditional law. Um, I, what these would probably be would be like if you're talking international law framework, like a targeted killing. So think like a U.S. drone strike against a a target in
Admiral
Pakistan, right?
Yamamoto.
We're
Admiral,
Yamamoto is a good one. The mixed bag here, the presence of the mayor is the one that's questionable, because that strays almost into assassination territory, given his status as a government official. Whereas I think you can argue that the Pike command and control, like the Pike leader and sort of his cadre there out in Mos Eisley, are sort of extensions of the same fighters that you were fighting. It's like, we delivered countless drone strikes against Taliban leadership in Pakistan. The operation against Osama bin Laden was executed in Pakistan, and all well outside the borders of where the actual conflict was happening in Afghanistan. So and those fall within this sort of legally questionable area, right? The difference is that as in our case, like I think there have been outcries to some degree to how some of these operations have happened, particularly when it involves U.S. citizens. But generally speaking, you don't see a big groundswell of international anger or outrage when somebody like a bin Laden is killed, right? There are questions about the operation and whatnot, and sort of particularities, but I don't think anybody's going to be missing the Pikes and demand justice, that Boba Fett be made to answer for their deaths. And I seriously doubt that anybody's going to miss Mock Shaez, the mayor, as well, given his dealings and whatnot. So Boba Fett's sort of in a power position, and I think will benefit from being the daimyo here, because as daimyo, he can do this sort of thing. He can make these targeted killings, and that's I think going forward going to be one of the ways that he enforces his power. Up to this point, he's really held Fennec Shand in check. She hasn't been let off on her own to go do these sort of things. I think this is the moment where he said, off screen, of course, go forth and do what you do best, Master Assassin.
I have mixed feelings on this, because this is like the end of Godfather 2, where I'll be at the baptism and all these people are going to die horribly. And that's how I'm going to solidify I'm the guy in charge. So it is a very Godfather power play. It'd be one thing if this had been, the drone strike on that office, the Desert
Right.
Survey office, and everyone in it had been killed with a mass explosive from a missile. Fennec kills them one by one in personal ways, and that you do that to send a message. Like, and again, around the corners where stormtrooper helmets, maybe heads, are on pikes, that sends a message of we don't tolerate this here anymore. So if this is like the true Western story where you hang the body out front to say, we don't like this, this is what we do to drug dealers, that sends a message. It is in no way legal. It's nothing that a just society would in any way tolerate or entertain. But it's the story here, and it's hard to round the circle to say that this is in some way legally permissible. Because I do agree with Gabby. It'd be and you, that'd be one thing if they took out all the mob leaders and arrested the mayor. Hanging the mayor sends a message that
Open up your schedule. I don't wait 2 weeks to see anybody.
Yeah, that's again the politician that literally talked out of both sides of his mouth.
Yeah. I just gotta say though, like, I don't know if we're getting a second season, if it was confirmed yet or not, of Book of Boba Fett. But I love Mina. I think, the fact that she has crossed over, Disney, Marvel, and now into Star Wars is just incredible, and is just kind of phenomenal. I hope even if we don't get Book of Boba Fett, we get to see Finn Shanna's character more.
Well, and this
Second.
also pure Ming-Na Wen, because watching her on Instagram, she seems fun, and there are moments throughout the series where she's clearly having fun, and Fennec has kind of a sassy sense of humor, and it's fun to see that, and I hope to see more of that. The two Mandalorian episodes kind of threw this for a loop, but I really do want to see more of Boba in charge, and just like the cultural background that's going on. The second episode with becoming part of the tribe was amazing. It's like more of that, and what we're seeing in Mos Espa, like there's a functional society there that we haven't seen all the elements of. So seeing them actually become a city that functions without the drug trade as its main export, that it's
without scum and villainy.
yeah, that it actually has a functional economy. I don't know what that would look like, because it's a giant desert planet. But if they bring water back somehow, how will that change it? So I do want to see more of Boba Fett being in charge and them exploring that, because we start with a really good character study, and then we do a hard turn to Mando and Luke, which ironically is some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen, but it just came out of nowhere in a Boba Fett story. So I still have whiplash, but I still love it dearly. Which, since Mando season 2 ended with the teaser for Book of Boba Fett, it's only fair that we see a droid riding Mando and Grogu at the end of Book of Boba Fett as they basically fly off into the sunset. And it does show exhibition of speed. So the kid saying go fast, and dad eventually saying, okay, I'll gun it. There are speed limits. He's not buzzing a Star Cruiser, so I don't think any X-Wings are going to pay a visit to him.
You know what? It should be a lawful defense that my cute alien toddler was tapping on the glass insistently. I've given in to, I won't say incredibly dangerous things, but they can be very persuasive with their never relenting or unrelenting persistence on things.
Yeah, it violates the Geneva Convention, but that's risk of being a parent. We then get Cobb Vanth in the Bacta tank, which means he should be healing. But then we see the mod doctor there as well, which might hint that he needs. He got hit on the right side, so a long.
I thought he got hit on the shoulder.
Okay, so chest, shoulder. Maybe we can do a freeze frame to figure out where, but somewhere in the core. Whether it was lower
That's
or
right.
shoulder.
He's gonna be fine, because he shoots the deputy
As long as his face and his hair didn't get damaged, then we're okay. Other parts can be robot on him. Leave the head alone.
If he needs a lung, that makes sense. But
yeah,
leave the hair.
I was gonna make a Bob Marley shot the deputy, but he didn't shoot the sheriff. He didn't kill and shoot the sheriff.
I shot the deputy and then I
Very-
shot him again and again and again and again.
very
Empty the
punchy,
clip.
apparently. But what I was going to say was he gets hit in the shoulder. And so I thought like the deputy's out for the count because he killed him like, you know, flat out because he was annoying anyway. But he hits him in the shoulder. So I thought, oh, like he'll rally the troops and get there and be like, oh man, you know,
Nope.
Vane couldn't take me out kind of thing. So it was weird that they were like, oh no, he's down, and that was weird.
And raises the issue. It's just mostly like put him in the like what do you do? You know, did Boba send for the body? Because at some point, this highlights the need to have an advanced health directive that says if I get shot and I'm dead, don't wait a couple days to try to bring me back, because that might be really uncomfortable for all involved. So yeah, was he mostly dead or all the way dead? And I don't know, but he's a good character. I'm glad. I want to see more of him in action because it's, again, pure Western feeling, and Star Wars being a great representative of the Western genre is just hysterical.
I tried to pitch, so Marissa, my wife, does estate law practice, and I tried to picture this genius idea that, like, what better way to convince people that they need to do estate planning to include an advanced medical directive than tell them the cautionary tale of Cobb Vanth. You never know. Cobb isn't dead, but you know he's going about his business. He's got a steady job. He's an elected official there. Doing good things in Freetown. And then the next thing you know, he's gunned down in the street. And what are we going to do? What are his wishes? And now he's facing serious surgery and all sorts of stuff. And it doesn't look like he has any sort of directive and plan. And she disagreed. She didn't think that any of her potential clients would find this moving. And I'm having a lot of trouble squaring this now. Like who wouldn't be moved by Cobb Vanth?
Well, you could
They'd immediately sign up and agree to pay whatever to get their planning done.
You could pivot to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where, you know, Phil Coulson's resurrected with advanced black science, and that shows the need to have an advanced health directive. So, you know,
it's 2022. We don't know who can be resurrected and who can't. Do you want to be resurrected or do you not? Yeah, it's very important. Very, very important.
Yeah. So with that, I really enjoyed the series, and I didn't think I would. And I thought it was some of the best Star Wars that they've done from a creative perspective, cohesive storytelling, understanding fan service, understanding love of literally everything from animated to live action. I thought it was really good. I still don't know how to deal with the Mandalorian episodes that kind of eclipse the Boba Fett episodes, which to me is, again, that's the weird feeling I have. Because we had a great character study going and then we switch horses. I get one episode, but two kind of push the limit. Tom, your feeling, and we'll let Gabby have the last word.
I struggle a little bit with this show. I really enjoyed it. I had a fun time. I like Robert Rodriguez's work. I've never been a huge fan of like his filmmaking style. I was a big fan of Desperado, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico was phenomenal. But overall, I don't know. I don't know what it's one that's really hard to put my finger on. There were moments in this finale that were great. I think I struggle, as did the creators, to figure out what's Boba's motivation for staying there. Why is he a daimyo? What's the beef with? What's the betrayal? that Bib Fortuna wrought upon him that led him to storm right back in and shoot him, and beyond just the desire to have like a little fiefdom, what's motivating Boba. They never really nailed that down, and I felt like that was something elusive. I do hope that they've positioned Mando now. Those episodes served a purpose, and when we get season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, I don't know, like you, Gabby, I don't know if they've confirmed it, but when and if we do get that, I really hope sort of the shackles are off, and sort of like Mando season 2 really found its footing, I feel like, and found sort of that relationship, and sort defined Mando and Grogu and their relationship to the degree that we know it now. That's how I hope Boba Fett and in particular Fennec are defined there. I want to see him kind of get off Tatooine a little bit and have some interactions off world pertinent to his little fiefdom, but dig into this purpose. Like, give me a reason to root for him other than just he's a cool character and he's a good, I guess, a good guy now.
Gabby?
So, like I said at the beginning, I did not watch the before I was drawn in to watch the Mandalorian episodes. And to me, like, I think the whole premise of giving Boba Fett his own show never really sat well with me in the first place. I think he was always really supposed to be this character of mystery. I totally appreciate it. You grew up with Robert Rodriguez films. A lot of people forget that he directed the Spy Kids series. So like that was a huge, like that, the influence that had on me. That was my childhood growing up. I think he Boba Fett kind of got this redemption in the Mandalorian episode that he first comes back in, and to me that was perfect, right? That to me, like that, when he has because clearly he survived, right? So it's not a huge leap to be like, oh, why is he fighting with this instead of like his normal kind of guns and what have you. But to me, that was the equivalent for him of the hallway fight scene in Rogue One with Darth Vader, where you get to see him kind of at his peak and like, oh my God, this is why this guy is so terrifying. And I really think they should have ended there. Like, I would have been happy to see, Boba Fett kind of pop up here. Fine if they wanted to close kind of Mando season 2 with him kind of shooting Fortuna and like taking over, and it kind of worked, like that you didn't need this kind of expanded motivation, because you're like, oh well, like he survived, he's gonna go take over the place that kind of wrought his destruction, right? Like that to me was all you needed, and like he's gonna be a gangster, right? Like it wasn't this huge leap, and he's gonna live out his days, in Jabba the Hutt's palace. So that's why I was never really on. I mean, no disrespect to Tamir Morrison, I think he does an incredible job. I just don't think the story was there for this character. Like, he is not a character that has the depth, and the depth that he's getting kind of almost takes away from the mystery, which gave him this kind of interesting aspect. I think it made sense that they had the Mandalorian episodes. I think I agree with you, Josh. I think that was some of the greatest kind of Star Wars film. I mean, the first episode with the where he comes back and he's see all the kind of prequel callbacks. I'm a huge prequel fan, and to see all of that made my heart so happy. I was so happy with that. I don't know how I will be able to emotionally handle Kenobi, because like just,
Strap in.
But it, right? That we needed a story from. Like Andor, I think there's a lot of going to watch you and McGregor wander around the desert, right? But I think that this is just kind of a misstep of, you know, giving a character that maybe didn't need the backstory. So hopefully, you know, he just kind of pops in and out of, you know, Mando episodes going forward. I can't see them giving him a second season.
Now, say this, I would hope to see him as a live action Captain Rex in the Ahsoka series. And because I love Morrison, I've really found him dynamic and engaging. So I do want to see more of the character. And I was like, you know, I sighed and kind of shook my head with the announcement of Book of Boba Fett. So, you know, I became a convert with, okay, like this works for me. And I didn't think it would. But I am super excited for Kenobi. So there's
I didn't even think about the possibility that we could get a trailer tomorrow.
Oh, I did.
Oh yeah, they dropped the poster. They're dropping the trailer. Like
Yeah.
that to me.
We're 3 months out. They've got to.
And remember, it's the like behind the scenes footage that they get and behind the scenes footage from B23. So I'm sure they have a trailer. I can't imagine they have a trailer for Andor yet. I don't believe that it. Maybe just I believe it has started shooting, but I can't solid. And I can't imagine that they would want to preempt Kenobi.
Yeah, I think we'll see Andor. I think we'll see Andor at Celebration. That's my guess.
Yeah, and so this is going to be Kenobi. I think we're going to get from the. It's going to be Marvel stuff, and it's going to be Kenobi.
And high likelihood Andor would come out August, September, and then Mando in December, because they can literally do one a quarter.
Buckle up.
Oh, and the other thing, you know, this series showed that you can have a connected universe in Star Wars. So Mando and Boba popping up. They can do the same with Andor and Kenobi. So, because Kenobi's what 9 or 10 years before Rogue One, so it'd be a younger Andor, or if you had Kenobi pop up in Andor, it's 5 years before Rogue One, so you give McGregor some more gray hair, and but you could do that. So, but I'm hoping Andor they don't go to Tatooine. That there are other planets they can go play on and tell James Bond type spy stories. I would like them to not. It's it's okay for the actor to shave. Andor shouldn't have a 5 o'clock shadow continuously as a spy. So that
you know what, Diego Luna can wear his facial hair however he wants to wear it. Okay.
Although I disagree, Josh. I want Cassian to make a quick stop on Tatooine just to see Jabba, just to fulfill Diego's dreams. And by fulfilling his dream, it means I've been a huge Diego Luna fan since Dirty Dancing Havana Nights. So just to see that, it'll be just quick in and out, and then
agreed, because Kenobi is going to be Tatooine based.
It's going to be so much desert.
There's a lot of desert time that we have coming up, so it's okay to have one of the series not go there. So if all 4 do, then it looks like, are we just dialing it in here? What's going on? So
just saving money on sets. That's all.
So yeah, I'd prefer them just do something different, but cautiously optimistic, because the Kenobi's interesting because he's the character that loses everything but doesn't lose faith, and I like that a lot, and that's I think a good story to tell as he's in these middle years, just standing guard, and apparently it won't be as boring as we thought it was. So there's
I think we're gonna
I
see
just
him doing
need-
a little more than counting sand. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I just need to get, because I know we're supposed to, they did casting calls initially for a young Luke and a young Leia. I want Jimmy Smits back. I just need,
Yes.
see Bale in action with little. That's what I want. So and all that, but like the icing on the cake would be getting Jimmy Smith back as Bill Organa, even if it's just an episode, even if it's just kind of a short scene. That would just make me over the moon happy.
Please listen to Gabby if you're out
I thought
there.
I thought they announced he was.
I don't
They
know.
might have.
I did see the casting for young. Well, I don't know if they announced a specific casting, but I know they were. But
So what they could do with Andor that would be interesting is Millie Bobby Brown really wants to play Leia, and she would be about the right age for the Andor series, around 15. So that could be, if they pull that off, that would be fun, just because she's like done the costume, and it's like, okay, you're campaigning for the role. I appreciate that kind of determination. Like, look.
okay.
But
I would,
go on.
yeah. No, I was gonna say the one thing I would like to see too is Jimmy Smits and Andor. Just I want my it's not possible to get Oscar Isaac, into kind of the older kind of stuff, but just two of them together. That's all I want. It's not a lot to ask. It's just crossing paths, and it makes our group happy.
Understood. So yeah, we are blessed with 22 being one of the biggest years in Star Wars history without a movie, and yet getting the most content for Star Wars. So that's because there's Bad Batch season 2 in here as well. So that's just phenomenal. Yeah. So with that, everyone, thanks for tuning in for this adventure. We'll be back with more podcasts. I'm not sure what the next live set will be for responding, but there's a lot of good issues in Peacemaker, so buckle up for that. And everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and above all else, stay geeky.